I have the polyps up. It's not in your head
You're
over.
listening to the
But since
MLS
it's such
Fantasy
a
Insiders, bringing you
small
weekly
league,
tips,
I thought I'd
tricks,
just read
and advice
the
for the
names
official
from the teams that are playing
MLS
that
fantasy
matter,
game.
like not the randos.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider. Sorry for starting a few minutes late. Was up getting some water, and Todd LaRue wanted to show me a video on Lady Boss's phone, and so had to pause for that. So welcome everyone. Since Gene is here and is asking,
recording in progress.
there we go. Hey, Black and Red. Looking forward to having you all here. Short round, short week, not many teams, so we're looking forward to talking through everything. Let me get the social out there, though, because we still want everyone to join the show. I gotta get everything switched over to the right social accounts. Put a little thing there. Put a little thing there. Post. I always having to change the names between Twitter, X, and Discord to make sure I get Ashley added.
Thank you.
I don't know why it just doesn't realize, like, that's who I want to add. Like, just put it at the top. Don't worry about that. Post there. Then get it back over here. We're all happy to have Ashley back with us after being gone for a couple episodes. Not a problem.
Oh, I'm happy to be back. Family stuff, man. It's just catches up to you. But don't worry, I'm here just in time to heavily brag.
There we go. Of course, that's the rule with the group here, is that as long as you're owning up to your successes and everything that you're doing, you're welcome to brag, but you have to be willing to acknowledge if you fall short as well.
I think I did say to you one of the weeks I couldn't come. I was like, but I had a really good week, so please make sure to mention that.
I think we did.
Every week I come on, I'm like, you did, I listened. But every week I'm like, well, another terrible round for me. I'm not even going to tell you where my OR is. You're going to have to scroll that far to find it. So I feel like I've owned my shit weeks this season.
It's fair. It's definitely fair. I did. Yes. Thank you, Kingdom. Kingdom is also acknowledging that I did do that. I did right.
No,
I've done right by the people.
I listen to you when I'm not on.
Thank you.
Feels very meta.
Old school right there. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We have the social out on Twitter, X, and Blue Sky. Also, we have it out there on Discord. So if you would please be so kind as to like and reshare those, we would very much appreciate it. If you are joining us for the first time here on YouTube, welcome to the live stream. We come to you live pretty much every Monday around this time. Every now and then something weird may happen, but we've been pretty consistent so far this year. So if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, hit the bell notification. You can see when we go live to talk about the official MLS fantasy game with a whole bunch of fantasy sickos here. And it's good fun. Good fun. So it looks like everything is good there. I've got the rundown ready here. We've hit the honorary Gene record button. So I think I got my water, are ready to go. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 16 of the 2025 MLS Fantasy season. This episode is brought to you in honor of Golazo! Nothing better than a near 100-point fantasy captain. Actually, we'd like to thank our amazing MLS Fantasy Insider Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to keep this project going. Find out more over at patreon.com/MLSFI. And quick preview, I was messaging the other MLSFI and MLS Fantasy Boss staff involved here, and I'm working on something special that I'm hoping to get out this year. So we'll say I know it's been a little bit of a wait for the swag, but I'm hoping that it'll be worth it. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in fantasy, Ashley Savage. Welcome back, Ashley. No special guest tonight, but we're happy to have you back.
The special guest is our friendship.
It is. It is. Yes, and the wonderful show. No, we've got a short round coming up this week. If you've not looked at it already, or if this is the first time you're joining us, short round, short slate of teams, and that is because of the upcoming Club World Cup and Gold Cup that is right here. So Ashley and I are just taking this on ourselves tonight. We'll get back to some more guests sort of after some of this shake up happens, but we're really excited to have people here with us. We're going to jump right into talking about how we did in this past round. But for those of you who are with us, please do in chat, please do go ahead and share your scores and let us know how you did. And if you're listening to this live or recorded, please feel free to comment below and let us know how your team did this round. If you got any advice from the fantasy community, we'd love to hear your stories of success or commiserate with any failures that may have happened. So Ashley, how'd you do in this big, massive double game week?
I did pretty well, and I need to say, like some people, I know I was not the only one. I only had 10 players this round because Jordi Alba, I double scrubbed, but I started Jordi Alba, who got hurt, finished with a 0, and then did not play the second game. So I only received points from 8 of my players, 2 intentionally, 1 unintentionally, and I still ended the week on 209. I was week rank 60. I moved up a couple hundred OR spots, and I'm, for the first time all season, currently in a Champions League spot. I don't think that will last. I've talked endlessly about how difficult this season has been for me, and I'm still nowhere near what I'd like to be, what I feel like I traditionally am. But it was nice to have a good week, Reid. It was nice to have a good week after kind of having to not phone it in, but we do a moderate amount of prep before we do the show, and missing the show for 2 weeks for family stuff. I was a little checked out, and so it was really nice to, my first round actually focusing for a couple weeks and to do well was nice. Some surprises that I had was New England defense. 2 defenders whose names I'd never heard of on the team of the week this round. New England doing quite well defensively, which, just kind of a surprise for me. Not on my radar at all. And then Nashville offense putting up points both home and away. This season so far, we've kind of been hesitant for them in their road games, but both Mukhtar and Surge doing really well. Surge, a great backup there with, if you picked him up with 23 points, that was really impressive. And then it's been a topic for us, I'd say probably for at least a month, of Messi not hitting the way we expect him to hit. I'd like to think he heard us and said, hold on, let me show those 2 fools what I can do, mostly you, because I've always believed in him.
Well, okay.
But yeah, Messi and Suarez just finally going hard. Obviously, their first matchup of the round was incredibly favorable, but to see them both produce so much in the second game as well against a good Columbus team was definitely a surprise. Some disappointments, I won't go into it too much, but FC Cincinnati and then Orlando's lack thereof defense for both teams was definitely surprising for me. I did have Freeman this week, and the only reason he produced any somewhat points was because he scored a goal. Otherwise, I think he probably would have had 3 points, 4 points across 2 games, which is not great. I had a weird feeling about Marco Reus and put him on my bench. He got hurt. Did not play the second game. And then, like I said, same for Jordi Alba. Started him, he got hurt. They lost the shutout. He was 0 points and didn't play the second game. So just got to have that one sitting there for me. Couldn't scrub points in with him, which is super annoying, but them's the rules. My general takeaway, this is a really interesting double week. I thought this week was a little more predictable, if you will, than the previous big double game round, but also still some real head scratchers of names on that dream team and who produced some points. But I think that maybe we stop talking bad about Messi. Not that we're ever talking too bad about him. For a hot minute, I think this point production earns him some acknowledgement. And then I know I've said this before. I think I've even used the same expression, but people need to just stop trying to make fetch happen with Orjano. I don't want to see him on your team. I I cannot. It's not happening. You watch him and sometimes you'll think, oh, he just almost, but he doesn't. And again, I'll let you elaborate there, but I had so many, I saw so many screenshots of teams where people talking about him, and he couldn't, again, just couldn't do it. So for that price point, and everybody's getting expensive now, and everybody has money now, so it's a little different. But yeah, I think DeAndre Yedlin has had more offensive contributions from a fantasy and game perspective this season than Orjano has, which, yeah. So yeah, those are my takeaways.
I can elaborate on that part, and I think the part is, one, some of what took away from Cincinnati was there was clearly rotation during the double, with it being at home and some expectations of better results. But two, I think Orjano is not being as much of a server. I mean, that's what Yedlin's doing. He's putting balls in it, so he's getting those bonus points when he's there. But Orjano is still trying to kind of play that playmaker at times and going in there, making cuts, trying to get shots on goal. It isn't as much as a distributor, and so I think that's taking into account. To roll back real quick for me. So I had a good round. I think what we saw a lot of strong performances from fantasy players out there in fantasy teams, and it really came down to your captain and getting points from all 11 positions. Some little things here and there, like Ashley talked about, she got from 10. But I know for me, I got 185 points, which I think was a solid score. And I think my overall rank change was minimal. So I think if you're in top 5,
you weren't
top
as bad as I was.
3, well, yeah. I think if you're in the top 5, top 300 people, if you scored in the 170s or 180s, and this is just this is not scientific. I need to get some of the people involved to help kind of scrape some scores and see what actual averages are. But this is just kind of my lay take from reviewing some of the scores I've seen around here. If you're in sort of those top 5, we'll say in the top 500, top 300 range, that if you got a score in the 170s, 180s, that was probably about average for where a lot of people hit. Maybe the 80s is a slightly above, but it's going to depend on what kind of bracket you're in right there. But that was probably average for a lot of people who are pretty committed to the game, trying to get the most out of the double game week. If you got above that, especially if you cracked 200, I think you had a fantastic week. It'd be definitely a fantastic week if you got anywhere in the 200s. Was definitely very good results, unless you're in the upper echelons of the game. For me, what happened was I hit on a lot of stuff that I came out with. But I had Orjano, which I went back to that bucket because of the double home game and some strong performances I saw, and it bit me again.
People can't quit.
And I agree. No, I agree with that. And then I also went with Jordy Alba, which was another going back to the bucket, which I had sworn him off. It was like, all right, home games, starting to turn the corner, and gets a hamstring injury. So it feels super bad for him, and so that didn't work out, and that hit my points there. But I had a strong bench. I had Dinke on the bench. I had Mukhtar on the bench. I had Heel on the bench, and I had Cornell on the bench. Of those, I got Mukhtar's points and Dinke's points. So super excited for that, because I know a lot of people were hesitant for Dinke because of the yellow card warning. Didn't come to fruition.
I had him.
I ran with Fry out there. Was happy with those first points, and so didn't even have to worry with Cornell. Other than that, I mean, I had Rusnak, Ojeda, Evander, Freeman. So I had some very respectable points there from the double game week. Freeman was fine for a double game. Maybe you want something in the double digits, really, if you had a stellar defender, but 9 is solid. Definitely happy with that. I thought Rusnak underperformed a little bit for what you kind of hoped
big time
from him. So the 10 wasn't super happy with that. And then I had Muriel on my as one of my forwards. Got a 7. That's fine. There were definitely some other options that could have been better. I did go with the Messi captain, and I don't feel hypocritical with that, because part of what Christian and I were talking about last week was you need to look at the round, look at the week.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it got a little bit lost or not, but yeah, just to recap that, I mean, Christian was off for Messi, and he was definitely in my top captain considerations because of CCC being gone, having some rest before this, some frustrations, of course, that we're building with him, and 2 home games. And so they made very much sense as a captain option for this round. And that's all at the core that I'm really saying about Messi is I don't think he's an automatic captain. And I think that he's in the conversation and that's exactly what it should be. It should be a conversation looking at everything around. I know Christian was in the camp of first Messi, then who, and I think I'm still in the camp of Messi's in the mix, but not an automatic.
Yeah.
Some other general takeaways. I mean, Ashley hit a lot of it. I didn't think this was a super chalky round, and I think that's really what flipped this on its head. Goalkeepers. I think it was more chalky. We saw Fry and Coronel were 2 of the top keeperoo-esque picks going into this double game week, and they were 2 of the top keepers that finished up here. I think Fry's 11 points was tied for the most points that a keeper got this round. Coronel was right there at 10, so you couldn't have gone wrong either way there with the weird lineups for everything. After that, it's really either completely in left field or it is just a little speckling of chalk there. Defense, I think is one that was in completely left field. I agree. The New England clean sheets, the strong performances from Philly on the road. I understand why people went with Kai. I'm happy that Kai worked for so many people. I shied away because of the road games. That was purely it.
Yeah.
That was purely it. But he did 24 points. That's great. Feingold 31. That's amazing. So New England players there, Philly players there.
You know?
They got all new people in New England. And then the LA Galaxy clean sheet. That was another one that we're not usually expecting for them. So lots of players up there that people weren't normally
First win.
targeting.
Can we take a clap moment for them? First win of the season.
Yes, we
LA
can do
Galaxy.
that. Well played.
Reigning champs.
Well played. And now
it.
there's rumors about them going after Ronaldo. So we'll see what happens. With
we can't talk about that yet. Okay.
The retirement league. Going to midfields, this is where we saw some mix. I mean, we had Mukhtar, we had Ojeda, people were in our conversation for people that I think would be more chalky or some more go-tos that people were looking at. But after them, it really was a mix. I mean, Beal, Wolf, Moranchuk, these were people who we didn't necessarily think were going to be up there. I mean, Heel was one that people were looking at as sort of a 5th-man rotation bench. Evander was up there. He got a 12, so he did okay. He did fine. Looking at all the other scores,
they both did 12.
I mean, looking at lots of people up there. I mean, Luna, people had talked about. He got 11. Some of these people. Yeah. So just
I had Rossi.
Dyer had 10
on my bench.
Yeah. And so there were some mix of players that didn't really work or didn't work for people. And so it was a mix there from what we're talking about with the chalk. So, but there were lots of opportunities here for people to go with what their gut said or just looking at some of the rotation. I mean, Forsberg was one that people were on because of double home, but he didn't play the first game. And so that was immediately get rid of him kind of thing.
Yep. I would say that two of the biggest chalk, and when we've talked about this many times, a lot of people, when they hear chalk, shy away from that because they don't necessarily want to have, right? But then a lot of people hear chalk and they think, well, then I have to have them. I think the Kai Wagner and the Messi captain were the 2 different makers for chalk this week, if that makes sense. I think that if you didn't have Kai Wagner and if you didn't cap Messi, your week was a little more off, if that makes sense, right? And unless you were, some sort of a premeditative genius and had Feingold from New England on your team, who outscored everybody but Messi. So I would say those were the 2 difference makers as far as chalk this week.
And Black and Red makes a good point in chat. Like New England was another team that had 2 away games, and so I agree. Like, well done to you. That's not a fantasy I've pulled from a lot this year. New England, they've intrigued
coming around on heel.
Yes, they've intrigued me with they've been doing better, but I would not have called that kind of a haul as a double away in this round. So
You don't
But yeah,
see a lot of 31-point double rounds from a defender whose name you didn't already know, right? I mean,
not at all. Not at all. I
yeah,
mean, coming
yeah.
away
So
with
kudos to
3
them.
goals and an assist after having only 1 assist before that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, DC they played 2 weaker teams, and we mentioned that on the show that they were away to weaker teams, but they were away, and that was always, especially traveling up to Montreal. So, hard things there. And then wrapping it up at the forward spot, again, messy clear chalk that we had here, but Suarez coming in as high as he did was definitely what, second overall with forward points. Was not expected. We had talked about this probably was not a round to double up with Miami, but they're just goal haul really produced there. Surge was one that we talked about as possibly being like on the fringe of maybe your third, and he did very well third overall right there. And then a lot of different players. I mean, Dinke was one with 16 that definitely had a respectable score. Rossi didn't have as much. We had some cautionary tales about Columbus, which we saw why. Kuipers was back though, getting a solid score as well with a lot of players. So there were definitely goals scored. This for me, as many double game rounds are, the overall takeaway, like Reid, you just rattled off a lot of names and a lot of scores. Just trying to highlight some of the mix of chalk and differentials that come up here, but pay attention to how teams rotated their players. This will be around. I'd say this is a fairly normal double game week to use as a litmus test. There's still a couple of weeks before we have Gold Cup and some international absences, so you had people still available for your team. The Club World Cup is only minimally impacting players, and so no one was really being rested for that. CCC's over, so no one really being rested for that. Yes, Vancouver had impacts with what they were playing for in CCC, but most of the other people. So this was pretty much the majority of people were available, barring some injuries. There were some card concerns, but the majority of people were here. So this is around 15 is one you can look back on with future double game weeks and say, all right, how did people rotate? What was going on here? And then use your own information and what's being talked about on our show in the community about maybe what's coming up.
Totally.
But I think this is a kind of a good look back on like, okay, how are coaches handling this? So we can see, and I think that was good information. But fantastic scores, great to see the results from the community, great to see just the chatter as it happened live. So if you did well during this round, congratulations! Super excited to hear that. Fun bit of trivia. This was just mentioned in chat by Black and Red. This score by Messi is not the highest double game week score.
It's
that we have
Joseph,
ever
right?
seen.
Or is it TT?
It is Landon Donovan.
Oh, okay.
2014, he scored 1 point higher. He and Robbie Keane had a field day with that. So very good. The next highest, I think number 2 was Javi Mo. So or I guess after Messi, but he had another big game. But Landon Donovan was.
Was it Joseph? Didn't Joseph have? Well, I trust Black and Red more than I trust myself, but I swear there was a round where he like had a hat trick and then a brace or something. And I mean, this was like obviously Atlanta times, but again, I must be mistaken.
We could see. I mean, that's what we got from him. But
Morales.
Messi's 4 goals, 3 assists. So I mean, that's what we got.
That's it.
I would have guessed Valeri or Piatti because I remember them having some massive double games.
Oh, interesting.
Even further back with some of that information.
Not I.
There. So that's how it was. I hope you all had a good double game week. It's going to be interesting. And then we're prepping for this next round, which is going to be shorter. So we still have a bit of a housekeeping to go over with you where we talk about who is in the mix and what other competitions you have to look forward to coming up that are going to be impacting the fantasy layout. And that's coming up right after this. I was trying to be positive, but maybe I'll bash the Club World Cup in the next segment. We'll see.
Bash who?
Club World Cup.
I mean, no, it's my right. It's my right to talk about it. That was wild.
We can talk about that in the next segment.
I was so proud. They usually just kind of listen, but that was fantastic.
No, you're right, Black and Red. The BP structure was different back then. Arguably better, I would say, with some of that,
Yeah.
because but most of that I would say is the structure for defenders was definitely a lot better to get points there. Which I don't know if anybody's looked at the Club World Cup fantasy game. Just very few opportunities for defenders to even do anything. It's like clean sheets or bust for defenders in the Club World Cup. So yeah, I know I remember Piatti getting a really strong double game week score. And so like yeah, him in the 30s got into that 60-point range. I know Valeri had just some great scores as well. Did not remember that Landon Donovan one. I don't remember. The only thing I remember from like classic fantasy, which is where I put that in there. Sure. I've got official names for it in my document, but like that 2014 era fantasy is I remember in some of the when we got to the playoffs when we still had the game and just being able to add more players from each team as the teams whittled down and just having this, I think it was a whole Houston stack and them all getting a clean sheet. And it was just like, I was like, yeah, massive points. But it was good. It was good. Yeah. Bonus points. Pretty rough. You know, I've been looking at the Club World Cup fantasy game and they've got a couple of interesting little elements that I think I'm going to remember to mention at the end of this year to be like, hey, could we bring this into our game? But if you all didn't see on Twitter, I did post how they have one that's if you make any changes to your field, it turns off your automatic substitutions, and I feel personally assaulted by that one. Like,
100%.
I know it's not.
We are.
Oops, that was not supposed to. I know it's not, but I feel personally attacked by that. So that's just how I feel. Okay. There is the social out. Come on, Blue Sky. Think. Uploading link thumbnail. Thank you. Reticulating splines. There we go. All right, so there is the social out for segment 2. And we'll start talking about some target players and quick housekeeping. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, the Chatango days. It has been a long road to where we are in the fantasy community. What are my thoughts on the new scoring bonus point system they have? What they have in fantasy now, or are we talking Club World Cup? If we're talking about fantasy now, I still prefer the MLS fantasy scoring system, bonus point system to EPL, hands down. I'm not familiar enough with Bundesliga or some of the other ones to know, but compared to EPL, I still much prefer what we have. For defenders, it's definitely gone down, especially with not having the separation for like clearances, blocks, interceptions. Club World Cup, I find it very sparse. Like it's pretty much you get a few actions for crosses or points created, but it's more like goals, assists, or clean sheets, and like that's it. Like I don't feel like there are many bonus points at all, which to me translates that players don't really get rewarded for doing their job, playing their role, as I think MLS does an exceptional job at doing. I am intrigued by getting 2 extra points if you have a player who scores at least 4 points who is owned by 5% or less than other players in the game. So it's like a differential bonus, and I'm intrigued by that. And that's one thing that if possible, I think could be fun to have in MLS fantasy. But of course, the Club World Cup also leans into like what I think is more easily recognized as the chip system, where some of those extra little points. Sure. So, but otherwise, I didn't care too much for the bonus. I didn't care for that scoring system at all. And so I'm not playing that game. There's definitely people who want to play the Club World Cup. Definitely head over to the Discord server. We have a little separate chat channel just for Club World Cup. I'm not super interested in it. I honestly don't care much for that tournament at all, period. And the majority of the teams involved in it are of no interest to me. One MLS team would be of interest to me, but other than that, it's just pretty much noise that I don't appreciate. Is it me? It is you.
Oh, LAFC are in it now.
Yeah,
They want they.
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Let's see here. We got distracted there with Club World. We'll probably add that into the main show too in just a second. So okay, here we go.
Sure.
Hello and welcome back to our segment 2 for the round 16 preview of the MLS Fantasy Insider. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied right there. Starting things out with a quick preview, quick housekeeping before we get to the players. It's a short round, as we mentioned at the top of the show. All the games start on Saturday, June 7th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with DC versus Chicago. This is followed at 9:30 by Colorado versus Austin. And those are the only 2 games that we will have on Saturday, with just not enough time between them for a really good Aru option with those games. So DC Chicago followed by Colorado versus Austin. After that on Sunday, we have 3 games. We have Portland versus St. Louis, LAFC versus Sporting Kansas City, and then Vancouver versus Seattle. The Portland game is at 7 o'clock, and then the LAFC game and the Vancouver game are both at 9 o'clock. Again, just Eastern time, yes. Just not enough time for a really solid Aru on Sunday. So if you're going to do any kind of Arus, you're really looking at something from Saturday and something from Sunday with a limited pool of players. So nobody's on a double. But, oh my goodness, everybody else is on a buy round. So if you are going with an Aru, and you absolutely should during this week, you have plenty of options. You should have plenty of money. You can either even splash out there, probably having Messi as one of your scrub players, just to show how rich you are, or whatever you would like to do with that, because there are so many buy teams. Why do we have so many buy teams? Well, if you haven't looked ahead in the MLS schedule, you'll see that during this week, there are a couple of teams who are playing friendlies ahead of the Club World Cup. We have Philly with a friendly, and we have San Diego with a friendly. That's part of what's going on. We had a couple teams who played friendlies last week as well. This is all preparation for the Club World Cup. Definitely an event that is of mixed reception by a lot of people, particularly people in Seattle, I would say. Ashley, any thoughts?
Mm-hmm. I read a lot about. I had no idea that the players were gonna wear the shirt said Club World Cash Grab. What it was?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard. There's you hear about it a little bit before it happens. I hadn't heard about it. I was very impressed that they did that. Their post-game interview they did as a team instead of individuals, and it sounds like up to this point, the clubs and players have not been given a clear indication of their share of the tournament prize money, which is very frustrating because we've talked about this in seasons past, right? These little tournaments that MLS pulls up in the middle of the season that distracts from league play. And generally players don't particularly enjoy it. And this is another example of, the 3 big name teams being pulled from the regular season, everybody being pulled from the regular season. And it sounds as though players have been given no clear dollar sign and indication of what they will receive from this tournament. So they're just, monkeys on parade, which is pretty ridiculous. So, yeah, let's see how it goes. Sounds like it's gonna be a real shit show.
Yeah, I don't like tournaments like this. I don't care for the majority of teams. I'll be honest. We just had a little conversation in chat. I didn't even realize this thing was as old as it was. This seems like a very modern, cash grabby kind of tournament in the middle of the season. That's just messing with everything. And so I'm not planning on watching it. I'm not planning on interacting with it. It's just kind of noise. Yeah. And so it's of no interest to me, much the same way as the redone CONCACAF Champions Cup has little draw for me as well. So I get it. And those are sort of like the 2 general opinions I think you'll see people sharing about this. A lot of people frustrated with the monetary division of the system, and then people kind of like me who just aren't really going in for it at all, just aren't really buying what's being sold. And then the third camp is people who like it. And if you like it, we're big into that here on the show. Like, enjoy it, have fun. There's only 3 MLS teams that are in play. If it's one of your teams, enjoy it, watch it, have fun with it. We know not everyone is able to or does follow all the international teams. My international team is not in it. Tottenham's not there, so less reason for me to be involved, and I don't have a team in every league, so it's not the big draw for me as maybe others would have been. So it's, whatever, go for that. They have a fantasy game. Check it out if you want to play it. Information's on the Fantasy Boss Discord if you want to do that. But it is
Reid's
one of the
not
reasons.
Going to play it.
But I'm not going to play it.
And he's not going to watch it.
But you can play with the fantasy physician because
but you can.
That's right, you can, and you should if you want to. Real matches resume next week though, but don't forget also on the horizon the Gold Cup. And we have people who have already started getting call-ups for that. I think, Ashley, did you have a list of players you wanted to go over real quick?
Yeah, we plug this all the time, but if you go to Discord and you just find that channel and look at the pins, the folks in Discord, which does not include myself or Reid, do you contribute to this very often?
No.
Just do such a great job tracking down all these call-ups, because there's not always a good resource through the MLS website. And by not always, I mean never. So thanks to everybody who contributes to this. It's just so helpful as we head into these rounds. So I'm not going to list, there's a full list of every team and everyone they're missing, which I encourage you to go look at, but that's not what I'm going to highlight right now. I'm just going to highlight the teams that are playing in this little mini round and the important players that are missing from those teams. So there's no one of huge significance, fantasy significance from Austin missing. The biggest player of interest missing from Chicago is Brady, the keeper. Colorado as well is missing Zach Steffen. Those are definitely players of interest. DC is not missing anyone of interest. SKC is not missing anyone of interest. LAFC is missing Devin Martinez. I don't think super highlighted player, but that's just someone that's been in conversation, so don't look at him this week. Portland is missing Maxime Crépeau and Sermon. Sermon has been a relatively successful defender for the Timbers, maybe not on the scale of fantasy, but for the Timbers. And it's my understanding that Pantemis, the other keeper for Portland, is currently injured, and it's hard to tell who's the number one there, if it's Crépeau or Pantemis, but they're both theoretically out this week, so that's something to pay attention to. Seattle is missing no one who starts, and Vancouver is missing everyone. They're missing Adekube, Ali Ahmed, Sebastian Berhalter, cute little Tate Johnson, my little defender guy I love. He got called up. Andres Cubas, Nelson, Vite, and Brian White. I think almost every name there is a starter. So definitely something to pay attention to with Vancouver.
Absolutely. It's very, very important to take that into consideration for this round. So with so few players here and even fewer players having been impacted by the call-ups, let's talk about who we are going to be looking at in this smaller player pool round. So as we usually do, starting with keepers and defenders, Ashley, who are you looking at?
Like you talked about with the keepers, I would like to pull from someone on Saturday and then have someone on Sunday. My back end keeper, I believe, will be Hugo Lloris. That's just what feels right to me. But I have no idea who my front end keeper is going to be, because I'm not sure. My understanding is that the keeper in the system for Colorado is not the keeper that actually backs up Steffen.
Right.
And so that player isn't in the system. I don't trust any of the keepers in the DC Chicago game. And I don't really know how I feel about Stuver on the road, so I don't know where I'm gonna land there. I honestly, and same with Portland, right? So if I want to try to skip the Saturday games and just do the Portland game with that tight window for the later two games, that's their third string keeper if Pantemis is still injured. So I don't know, Reid. I honestly might just go a Hugo Lloris this week and not do a keeper. I want to see the lineups and see if, what those look like for Saturday and for the Portland game too. I think that perhaps doing Roman Berkey would be an interesting way to go. Even though he's on the road, just because I feel like he'll get some bonus points if he can't get the shutout. But I'm perplexed with what my keeper situation will look like this week. But I do know Hugo Lloris will be in there in some capacity. I prefer Hollingshead for LAFC. That's usually where I go. I like Aaron Long as well. Veselinovic is who I will take from Vancouver. I like Gutman from Chicago and Mascara from PDX. However, now they haven't been as consistent as previous seasons. I'm not considering a Seattle defender with that massive list I just read you of players missing from Vancouver. Now, Vancouver has been able to make things happen with a rotated lineup already this season, multiple times this season. So I don't really feel comfortable targeting them, but I do think that with Seattle missing so few defensive pieces, even though that back line is very banged up right now, I'm definitely considering that for my fourth or fifth defender spot.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and I've got a message out to Skylar to see if we have any insight on if the Colorado keeper is going to get added into the game or not. So with hope we'll get some information about that before the round. But that is the frustration part. And honestly, of the four teams in Saturday, it's Austin that I think I'd be most willing to take a coin flip on with that. I mean, I'm not sure about Chicago's defense to be able to hold back DC, which is on a bit of run of form, could be getting back Benteke. I don't know what his is, but they've got some. They've been showing some ability to score without Benteke. We'll get into that in just a second. And so there's chances there. I can see goals on both sides in that game.
Yep.
The Colorado game, if the new Colorado keeper was in the mix, I might be willing to take a flyer on him just because it's in Colorado. Austin's not been the most prolific scoring team. Colorado's not as solid of a defense as they once were a few years ago, but I'd be kind of willing to take a flyer on that just for them being a home team with some of the weirdness going on. That being said, Jordy's not always as consistent. There's not a consistent forward scorer for Colorado.
He's hurt too.
And he's hurt. And so it's not just like a done deal for them. So I'm kind of willing to take a flyer on Austin for that first game, just as the keeperoo. There's no reason not to. Austin's had some okay defensive returns, so you might get lucky on this one just because of all the weirdness that's going along. And then on the back end, 100% agree. It's Lloris. I think Stuver Lloris is going to be the chalk if you're going with the keeperoo this week, unless we have more come out about the teams on the Saturday game. I think Lloris is a great shout. Now, I will say for Lloris, though, is LA hasn't always kept clean sheets, so they're definitely a team that can be scored on. And now that Sporting Kansas City has had this coaching transition, we've seen Joveljic get some goals. So it is by no means a sure thing here, and there could be something strange that happens in that Vancouver-Seattle game as well with what will be a heavy rotation of Vancouver. So this could be another round where maybe people want to look at Fry again as the back end of
Sure.
and Aru. So it's something to consider. I definitely can understand that line of logic if you're thinking through what are the chances here. I think the odds will say that LAFC is going to be favored as the best clean sheet chances, but Sporting Kansas City is not without its threats as well. And then as far as defense, for me, it's just matching up with those keepers. So if you're going to go with the LAFC Austin, you can definitely match up your keeper there. I think this is a round with either of those teams. You could potentially look at tripling up with that. Probably not as recommended for LAFC, but I mean, I think it's definitely an option if you wanted to go with a triple up of 2 defenders and a goalkeeper for just going all in on a back line. Easier with Austin. If not, look for some guys who are out of position if they're available right there. But I think this is one I'm going to lean towards the home teams, except I am looking at Austin, and so I do have some of those guys on the bench just because I think it's the better Aru option. Otherwise, I mean, maybe you can get lucky with someone from Seattle. Like, look at that lineup. So if you're saving some spots, this is a great round to have at least one scrub keeper, and you'll have some options there to consider. And if you are having like someone from Vancouver or LA on your team, or Sporting Kansas City or anybody, you'll be able to see those lineups for those 9:00 games. So you'll have the ability to make some maneuvers if you want to like abandon an LA strategy and go with Seattle strategy, depending on what's there. So you have some time to adjust there, but not a whole lot of players in that mix with defender options, in my opinion, for this round. Looking over at chat real quick. Supposedly we're hearing that the Colorado keeper will get added. People are looking at Mosquera. Hollingshead, is definitely a go-to. People can look at from there. I think you could also go with one of their big center backs as well. I think either of those options make sense. Yeah. Roldan's a name that come up. It makes sense for what's happening with Vancouver. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. I don't think there's a wrong way with anybody here. Gutman on the bench. That one surprises me. I will say that one surprises
Gutman on the bench.
Me. You both surprised me. Again, they both surprised me. I'm sorry I didn't hear you say that because I was doing something with chat.
That's okay.
But I get it. I think see that worries me because it's coming from Black and Red in that DC game. But because I was gonna say I feel like DC's got some teeth to him against Chicago, but we'll see. We'll talk more about that in a second. So let's talk about that now and move on to midfielders. Ashley, who do you have?
Yeah, so this is a week where everyone I want is gone. I have this method where I just look at the matchups and I make a team, and then I check injury report, those things, right? Yeah. Who got subbed out, who picked up a knock, because the system doesn't update like it used to, right? And I had to take out like 3 of my midfielders, I think, because I had picked all players who were gone, and that's okay. The names I picked in that first draft that stuck, though, were DaCosta from Portland, who is equal on price and points with Antony. So I think you could go either way with that. Rusnak, even on the road. And then Tyler's gonna love this one. Zinkernagel from Chicago. Who seems to have been picking up the speed that Gutierrez had started with. So he is on my bench right now. I have just a full Chicago bench just to see what happens. The other 2 middies that I picked up was Pirani from DC, which is not someone I ever would have thought I'd say, but he's scoring only bangers and getting a small amount of bonus points. So for what's available this week, I think that he's a good look. And then I also picked up, he is on the road, but I picked up Lillen for St. Louis and to round out my midfielders. I will say, I think you could go Hartel as well if you wanted. He's on more set pieces. And I also think Danny Shallowy for SKC is a bubble one for me, but again, he is also on the a road team. So that's where I'm currently sitting.
I like that Lowen pickup. I don't know how many people have been keeping an eye on him since he's kind of been working back into the team, because he was definitely a huge go-to last year. He has just came back for a 90 in this last game against San Jose and got a goal and an assist. And so that's kind of the production that we definitely wanted to see him. He wasn't playing full 90s at the beginning of the season either, and so it's been interesting. But yeah, that's a great shout out. I think if you're worried about it, could be on the bench. I have a lot of similar names right there. Zickernagel, Pirani. I liked what I saw from Pirani during the game against Cincinnati. I agree with what the announcers were saying, that without Benteke, he's been a big force for them, and he's been getting a lot of production because of that. He's really been playing these last 3 rounds after playing a lot at the beginning. He came in for 18 minutes against Red Bulls, and then he played 9 minutes against New England in round 15 and got a goal. And he played 60 minutes against FC Cincinnati last week and got a goal and an assist. He got key passes in each of those and several shots. So I think if that's the kind of production he's seeing, he's working up to full fitness. Chicago at home could be a good match for him. And so I think he's definitely got a good potential for this round. If Benteke's in the mix, and again, I should have looked up Benteke's schedule. Black and Red, you're in chat. Let us know that real quick. If Benteke's in the mix, he could be impacted. But honestly, if Benteke's in the mix, I'm probably going to take both of them and just see what happens from there. But Rusnak, DaCosta, those people absolutely in the mix there. I don't like anybody from LAFC. They have not been a midfield team for us.
I guess maybe Under, but I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, nobody there. With Berhalter out for Vancouver and Gauld still having no timetable for him, I'm not looking.
Also out.
Yeah, I'm not looking at anybody from Vancouver as an option. With Jordy picking up an injury, I'm not really looking at anybody from Colorado. I'm not excited by any of the midfield options from Austin.
I should say, sorry, it was my understanding that Mihalovic got subbed out. I think in like the 50-something minute. He scored before he got subbed out with a knock, and I haven't seen yet, because it's Monday, if he's going to be able to play this week. Now, if he is starting, I'll throw him on my team for sure. Just as an asterisk. Feel the need to say that.
You made a shout out about Shall We? I think that's a good backup there. I mean, I've seen Jordy mentioned in chat. We'll see the lineup. I mean, if Jordy's starting, I think he's worth putting in the team.
He's a grab.
He's definitely one there. Check and see how that injury is. I think I would pick him up over some of these other options we're talking about if it's going to be Shallowy or others. What you might want to do if that's going to happen is obviously put Jordy on your bench, then have your backup there. You probably have to go in. Well, let me start over again. The good thing about DC and Colorado playing on the Saturday game is if Benteke is starting, you'll be able to see that and decide if you want Pirani or DC. I think Pirani's stock goes down if Benteke starts. You could roll with both. And see, but I think that will impact him. You'll be able to see that Colorado lineup and go there, and so you can definitely put in people like Lowen into the team. You could put in people like Shallowy into your team, and they could be placeholders for you, and you can easily just switch those out. If they don't hit, you've still got some solid options right there with the team. But that would mean you're going to have to decide: do I want to go with a Pirani? Do I want to go with a Zickernagel? Do I want to? What you're going to do? But yeah, definitely time to make those decisions and get some feedback from the community at the same time. But a more limited pool, because I really just don't like a lot of these people. I mean, if we're looking at people like Wolf from Austin, I mean, I just don't feel like that's going to be. It's going to be a low scoring round.
Not for me.
It's going to be a low scoring round, but you're hoping to at least
talk about names you've never heard of. That's what this
Right.
Which is
I think
gonna
you're
be.
trying to get your like sevens out of your players, and if they're going to be bringing
Oh
in like
yeah.
fours or fives at the midfield, you're going to be just left disappointed. So you're looking for
Hmm.
something out of this one for sure. So probably fairly similar teams, but those I think you definitely have more than five guys you can maybe throw around there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
see. Good time to add. There will not be a differentials article this week because there are so few players. So if you have
Yeah.
differential thoughts,
Everybody's a differential.
put them in the comments below. All right, let's move on and talk about forwards. Ashley, who do you have?
Yeah, I'm gonna walk through this one pretty clearly. Denis Bouanga, Joveljic, and Kuipers are who I have based on the teams playing and who's available for that team. So if Benteke is fit, um, it's probably something I would consider with the home game against Chicago missing their starting keeper. I've never been in on Navarro for Colorado, and Brandon Vasquez, bless his heart, has just not found form in Austin for how much money they spent on him. He is not currently producing. So I'm not really looking there. Portland Timbers strikers don't really interest me. I will say I have Klaus on my bubble watch for St. Louis, considering St. Louis has not been clicking. They've already fired their coach this season, but and playing in Portland is never easy. But Portland are missing their keepers and a very contributing defender. So I don't like loading up on a road team, but there's so few teams to pick from. Um, you're kind of limited. And then, like I said, Bouanga and Joveljic from that LAFC SKC game, those are two players right onto my team. And then if you look at the last game, the Vancouver Seattle game, Brian White is out. I'm not really interested in anybody else who might fill that spot for them. And Seattle strikers drive me crazy. Evgeny Musovski's back, and he was on that goal scoring run, right? 5 games, I think it was. But I'm you can't talk me into him. And then Jesus for friendly scored his first goal for the team, but this is first goal, so I'm not really interested in anything going on in that game either. So, like you kind of said, your options are limited.
Yeah, so this is an easy decision for me if
Yeah.
Benteke is back. If Benteke is back, it's Kuipers, Baranga, Benteke. Period.
Yeah.
End of story for me. Like if he is back in there, that's the option. It's the third forward for me that we're talking about here. I like Bawanga's potential against Sporting Kansas City, so he's in there. I like Kuiper's options against DC United. I have him on the bench because of him being the early play. So that's definitely in there. He's just been so good this year as a go-to. The third options, I think Musovski's in the running from there. I think we've already talked about Joveljic. I think that LAFC is not always solid this year. They've got 2 clean sheets in their last 5 games. They only have 5 clean sheets total this year. So they've not been a solid team there. And when they do concede, they're usually giving up a couple of goals. So
Yep.
there's going to be scoring chances there. So I think Joveljic is definitely in the running for that. I like the Klaus shout out. I wasn't really targeting St. Louis, but with what's happening in the Portland backline, I could see how that's a strong
He
suggestion
hasn't
there.
been him.
He got a goal last week.
He is gonna say he scored last week. He hasn't been very good, but it's just something to worth looking at.
I agree with your take on Austin. I don't think Vasquez is in a slump. We saw it happen with Cincinnati as well before he got traded. I don't really have a lot of faith in. I don't have a lot of faith in the attack for Austin. It's just too inconsistent. I'd be willing to take a flyer on defense, but I'm just not really looking at Austin. They're the ultimate differentials in some ways because of this. We'll see what happens with that. And I also don't really trust the Colorado forwards as well. So
yeah,
it's going to be an interesting mix. But I think those are your solid options there. Joveljic. I think Klaus is a good shout there. Musovski for Seattle. I think those would all be in the running for that number 3 spot. So those would be the 5. Bawanga, Kuipers, of course. And then if Benteke starts, but the question would be how much is he going to play if he's going to start, if he's just coming back after a long injury.
That's my concern too.
So that is of concern there. But he would definitely be in that mix. And again, put him on the bench. Run one forward. Put Benteke as your only forward. Have him on the bench, and then just see what kind of production you get there. And you can just get that lineup set to see if you want to preview from that spot. All right, let's wrap up everything with the captain. Ashley, who are you looking at?
Denis Bouanga. It's so nice to be able to say that with confidence again. So much of this season, it's been like, oh, I guess it'll. Now, I will say, if you ask me who, if not Bouanga, I am in a bit of a tailspin. I don't like anyone else. I guess you didn't ask me. I don't know why I'm like stressing out to answer a question you didn't ask me.
Because it's what we always talk about at this point.
I think honestly I would lean either DaCosta from Portland or maybe Kuipers. I don't know. I don't like a road striker in a team that I consider middly bad against a team that I consider mostly bad. Like, I don't really want to captain anybody in that, you know, maybe Rusnak on the road. It's a Cascadia game, but even that feels so, yeah, for some reason, well, based on the timing of the game, if for some reason Denis Bouanga is not playing, I think I would just go straight to Rusnak because of the timing. We wouldn't have another choice, but yeah, I don't know. Who do you got?
Yeah, so here's
if not.
Here's a preview of the captain video I'll put out this week. Sorry about last week, didn't get to it because of just a short turnaround.
Yeah.
So yes, Bouanga is my first go-to, and that's because he plays the second round. I understand why someone might look at Kuipers. I understand why someone might potentially look at a DC player if they feel that matchup is really good. Kuipers is who I probably think would be the most logical captain pick from that game, though. But that's Saturday. They're on the road. I feel like Chicago players are better suited for the bench this week, and so therefore out of the captain conversation. If you do want to captain someone like Kuipers, that's a big move, and you're going to be locked into it at the beginning. Too rich for my blood. So I think Chicago are better suited for the bench. With that being said, you have to look at the Sunday games. You're going to see the 7:00 games, and you're going to be locked into it. I don't think DaCosta is good enough of an option. He's not been consistent enough. I think he's the best option from Portland to pick up if you want that coverage, but I don't think his point ceiling and form is what you are looking for a captain during kind of a strange round like this. So for me, it really comes to, he would be third, I guess, if you wanted to go that. He'd be tied with Kuipers as who I would put as like a third captain pick. So it really comes down to these 9:00 games on Sunday. And I think you're exactly right. Look at the lineups. Bouanga leads for me because LAFC is on a good run of form, and LAFC is just not really touched in any significant way from the call-up situations that are going on. So no worries there. They do have Club World Cup coming up, but they've got a couple of weeks before that really starts to sink in, so I don't think there'll be any real impact right there. Going over now, Seattle, almost the same statement. They are virtually untouched from any significant way from the call-ups that have been happening right now. So I expect a pretty strong lineup. They're going up against a very likely weakened Vancouver team. Not weakened, but they're recovering from CCC. So call-ups, recovery, this could be a good opportunity for Seattle players, but they're on the road. So in Cascadia match. So is that enough to override Bouanga as a captain? And I think that's going to be an individual player call. For me, those are the top two players. I'd put it Bouanga and Rusnak because of the home form, because of some of the poor history of Sporting Kansas City, at least with conceding and some of the more recent successes in form for Bawanga. But I think Rusnak's right there. And so look at the lineup, see what happens. But it's going to be Bawanga, Rusnak, and then for me, a DaCosta / Kuipers, but you're really pigeonholing yourself at that point because of just how the games line up. With that 7 o'clock game, you can't see everything. So pretty chalky right there. After that, it's an unnecessary risky differential, I think. I mean, it could be Joveljic gets him a hat trick in this. I don't know. We never know those things, but that's just so risky against the odds for me of what you're going to see. I think LAFC is going to be on top in a lot of the odds that we see with XG and clean sheet chances, and that I think they're going to be the team. It's a team that you'll want 3 players from this round. And so you could arguably say that Seattle is going to be another team you'll want 3 players from this round.
I'm not saying that. You can say it if you want to.
I said you could argue that.
Okay.
Arguably, you could say that. Maybe not. I only have 2 right now, so we'll see where it comes at the end of the day. Looking over at chat, very similar there. People are saying Rusnak, DaCosta. Yeah, these are pretty much the 3 guys. And again, this is the sneak preview. I'll recap this again in the YouTube short that we have. If I have any other thoughts, if I get some more stats, I'll try to work those in and see. But that's just with the way the times line up, where my head is with how to navigate your captain choice this week. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. I know it's been kind of strange with the fewer teams. We've tried to draw out some of the section, tried to have some good conversation about it. A little bit of lighthearted bashing of the Club World Cup, too. So, all in good fun. People are going to have fun with that fantasy game. And so I'd love to hear the feedback people get, especially with the chips that they have and some of the scoring. Would love to hear the feedback for how people like that game when they play it. So let's wrap everything up tonight with our plugs. Ashley.
I don't have anything too exciting. Just want to plug the MLS Fantasy Boss community that steps in and really helps out when where I'm gone, you're gone, we do things. So I really appreciate that. And then also just the Discord, just never missing a beat. So nice to be able to have conversations there and look up lists of where everyone's going into what country and all those things. So I just appreciate everyone over there so much.
Absolutely. I'm going to just cover the general things that we have with the Discord and the MLSFantasyBoss.com. Like I said, we'll have some modified articles this week because of just the fewer teams that are available. But still go over there, check that out. We'll have information available. And if nothing else, hit up the Discord, MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord, the easiest way to get tapped into that community. Join the conversation with the rest of the players who can run your ideas off of, get the stats, look at all that good information, not just for this game, but more games to come. We'll have more DGWs coming up. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. So be sure to check that out and would love to hear about your successes or failures this round. And if we were right or wrong in any of the takes that we had, always happy to hear that. So join the community, get involved. It's going to be a fun round, even though it's short. And as always, good luck.
Recording